Welcome back, everyone, to Captain Testable Reviews. Today we'll be reviewing the newest episode, as of right now, Stage Plight of the Wild House. Oh boy, we have a lot to unpack here. So, out of the episodes that are coming out in March, this was the one I was most anticipating, the one I was the most excited about. Judging by just the promos and everything, I could tell this was probably going to be something very relatable, something I could relate to. And I know we've all been for the struggle that Luann has been inside this episode. But after watching it, I must say I am mighty disappointed in the way that it came out. So let's get into the reasons as to why I have to say that. So, Stage Plight essentially is the Lubini episode, as they call it on Nick. Winnie, Lucky, not Winnie. Just you can call it anything really. Just don't call it. Like, I don't even know, really. Give me a second. So, let's start out with what I have to say about this episode in general. And I must say that this episode was largely disappointing from a standpoint, and it felt absolutely rushed. Let's talk about just the fact that they literally reused the same plot point from the sweet spot where Lincoln had to, give everyone their seats and said, oh, I can't sit next to this person or that person, but without the charm and everything. Sure, this scene didn't take as long as that, but it still lasted a good minute of the 11 minutes. Luann essentially has to, become a Montague, but in order to do that, she needs to trade places with some girl who can't be on the Capulet side because another girl is there that she doesn't like, and back and forth, and blah, blah, blah. It's the same plot point from literally the sweet spot, just repackaged. The same problem arises, and I didn't really mention this in the last review, but the same problem arises for Racing Hearts, where Winnie was like, oh, Nada, aha, she's like, fought Nada would admit yes, which, if you watch Job Insecurity, that same joke has been used inside there, but I decided to not really go into that because it's more of a minute little joke, and the rest of the episode wasn't really funny to begin with. But here, the comedy in this episode is dead entirely. There's some jokes I liked. I liked pretty much every bit with Mr. Coconuts in it. I feel like if the entire episode was about Mr. Coconuts and a new character, Mrs. Apple Blossom, being added, I feel this episode would have been absolutely hilarious. I feel like they should have bonded with the puppets, and they should have done the puppets instead of the Romeo and Juliet bit. Which, speaking of the Romeo and Juliet bit, really? Really? Did they really need to use this same old cliche? I mean, at least Jimmy Neutron, they mix it up a bit, and they did the same thing, but with, Macbeth, another Shakespearean play. I feel like this definitely could have used another Shakespeare play. Well, I can't really name much on the top of my head. There are all kinds of plays of love and stories that they could have used. And speaking of the Jimmy Neutron episode, that episode really did use the idea of Jimmy wanting to get more used to the girl interest at the time, whose name I forgot, the one that looked like Michael Jackson. It used it a lot more fluently because it added a new edge to it. It added new flair to it. But here it's just the same old Romeo and Juliet plot, and it just doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't really feel creative or anywhere near what I would expect from Wild House standards, because I set some pretty high standards for what I'm expecting to show, and this episode just didn't really feel very original. Now, let's move on to some of the worst bits. Like the instructor, whose name I forget and don't really care to know. Oh my god. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Let me talk about this one. The drama teacher or instructor behind the Romeo and Juliet, whose name I forgot. She looks like Grey DeLise, and I'm pretty sure she's... or Grey Griffin, I think, now. And I think she's voice acted by her. But, oh my god, she is so annoying and obnoxious, and it is absolutely unbearable every single time she's on screen. And she is on screen for a good chunk of this episode. And every single time she's easily overly dramatic, constantly talking with some, oh my god, I cannot believe this happened. It's still so soap opera-y, and it just gets on my nerves, honestly, watching her every single time on screen. Now, this wouldn't be, so bad if she, had, 1 minute of screen time, but no, she is here for the majority of the episode. She is here for a large chunk of it, and it makes it so unbearable to watch, especially, because she is so annoying. It honestly gets on my nerves. She's always oh my god, theater, and it is so dramatic, I cannot believe it happened, and Like, everything she says is so, like, theater reference. It just feels like it's just her main trait, and it's like she's just meant as overly dramatic. Now, you can always pull off an overly dramatic character as a bit of a one-off gag, but they go with this character, and she is here. Now, let's talk about probably one of those repetitive scenes ever. The scene where, like, Luann discovers, hey, I can't kiss Benny because I have, like, she has, like, stage fright, or, like, she's scared to, get close to him. We've all been there, and I do agree it's a bit relatable in that sense. But it goes on for 4 minutes, and there's no iteration in between. All of the scenes are just Luann just screws up the chance, and then the instructors being extra. It just gets so annoying and repetitive. And the instructor is also there making quips and marks and saying, oh my god, look at my show. Oh my god, I cannot believe this happens. Who could have done this? And it just gets on my nerves. It's honestly just so hard to watch that scene, especially. And the parts before it are annoying too, but more boring in the sense. Because the instructors, while she is there at times, the parts where she is annoying, and I hate it every single time she's on screen. And the parts where she wasn't, it was just boring, and nothing really happened except for when Luann was trying to get with it. Now, I will say I liked the ending. The ending to the episode was marvelous because Mr. Coconuts and Mrs. Apple Blossom kind of just spilling the tea and giving the secrets away, and then them bonding over the puppets. And I feel like this episode would have been better if they bonded over the puppets, as well as every single joke with Mr. Coconuts in it. I like the part where they're talking about themselves and Lola just seems kind of scared. Speaking of an episode about stages and doing stage fright, I feel like speaking of stage fright, this kind of reminds me of yet another episode, and that is of course Gown and Out, which also featured Lola in it, where Lola didn't want to really lose inside it, and she wanted to love the competition. She thought she would lose against it, and she got stage fright and didn't do it. So not only are we repeating plot points from episodes like The Sweet Spot, we have a repeated plot point from another episode literally in the same season that aired a couple months ago. So yeah, this episode just is so empty too. It's really lacking in substance. When the instructor's off the stage, nothing happens at all, and it's just so dull and boring, and none of the new characters are funny, neither do they really add anything. So it just kind of feels like a complete waste of an 11 minutes, and you can tell by my voice what we're going to give this episode rating. I'm sorry to say this, and for all you Lou Benny shippers, but this is a blacklisted episode. This is a pretty bad episode, in my opinion. I didn't want to give it a bad rating. I never wanted to give it a bad rating. I thought, because I was so excited. I wanted this episode to be so good. But it just fails in every way, from story structure to repeated plot points to unoriginal to that annoying character that's always on screen, to just not even really being all that funny, with all of the jokes being pushed to the very end, where the ending's the good part, so I have to sit through 9 to 10 minutes of torture just to get to it. The episode feels so empty and just not there, and I don't expect that from season 3 of a show. I really don't. I'm surprised this is just the way it is. When you have to repeat plot structure and points like that, at season 3, it just makes me sad. It honestly depresses me. This is a blacklisted episode. It's not the worst episode of the season. It's not the worst episode I've seen, but it's still worthy of a 4 out of 10. And that was my review of Stage Plight. Did you like the episode? Great. I'm fine with that. I can see why some people would like the episode. If you enjoyed the episode and thought it was funny, and if you had more tolerance to that one instructor or thought she was funny, then I'm absolutely fine with that. I don't really see how anyone could not like this episode. There isn't really much offensive about it, and therefore you like it. So don't really get angry at me for giving a negative review. I feel like we should respect opinions here. And I know people will not agree with me all the time, and that's fine. I know my opinions can be a bit ridiculous or overcritical, but that's just me in general. That's just my taste, that's my preference. So if you enjoyed the review, go ahead and hit the thumbs up, I guess. Maybe subscribe. There will be more reviews in the future. Anyway, thank you for stopping by to the Captain Tesla Show and the Captain Tesla Loud House Reviews. This has been Captain Tesla, and I am moving out.